Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a review video on the NATASHA DENONA 28 pan eyeshadow palettes. She has two of them out. I have both of them. This is a video I've been meaning to do for a while now because I've had at least the first palette for over a year now, and I think the other one I wanted to get it right when the last Sephora sale was going on, so the one in November, I guess. I got that one around then, so I've been using them quite a bit, and I think that I can give some good pros, some good cons. I'll give you swatches of every eyeshadow in both of the pans, and kind of my overall verdict. Like, do I recommend you go and buy them or no, or what are the options if you're looking to try some NATASHA DENONA eyeshadows? So if that sounds interesting, let's get right into it. So let's first go over kind of like the details to the palette. So NATASHA DENONA is a makeup artist. She's been a makeup artist for over 20 years, I think, and in the last couple of years she started to come out with her own makeup brand. I think it started with the eyeshadows, and she's been gradually adding products to the line. Now she's got like lip products and a foundation and highlighters and all kinds of stuff now. You can get NATASHA DENONA products from the company website, or I got both of my palettes from beautylish.com, and now Sephora is carrying the full line of NATASHA DENONA products. So you can check them out at any of those places. So there's two 28 pan eyeshadow palettes. One of them is the green brown palette. So that's it there. So obviously it's mainly green brown eyeshadows, but you do get some extra colors in there. There's a really nice gold, a couple like kind of blue shades, but mainly you're getting, you know, greens and browns. And the other one is the purple blue palette, and that's it there. And obviously in this one you're getting a lot of purples and blues, but you do get some kind of like nice gray colors, and there's like, you know, some that are kind of pinky. So you do get a decent shade range in each palette. The big problem with them is that they're really pricey. So Canadian, each one of these is $305. Just so expensive. I think when it's the American price is $239 a palette, so super expensive, like 3 times more expensive than any other eyeshadow palette I own. So it took me a while to kind of end up purchasing these, because I was like, oh my god, like that's a crazy price. So her products are really pricey, particularly the eyeshadows, so that's why this video is great. I can show you some swatches, tell you what I like about them, what I don't like about them, so that ultimately you can decide if you want to drop this much money on an eyeshadow palette. So the big kind of claims that they make for these eyeshadows palette is that they're supposed to be ultra pigmented. Like, that's the #1 reason why she created these eyeshadows, is I guess she felt like she wasn't finding eyeshadows that were already out there by other makeup companies that were super pigmented and saturated with the color that she wanted. So they're supposed to be ultra pigmented, they're supposed to blend really easily, they're supposed to be really long lasting, and apparently they're made with real crushed pearls, so that's where you get a lot of the really pretty shine and kind of pearlescence to the shadows. I will say talc is the #1 ingredient in probably about half of the shadows. So if you are allergic to talc or want to avoid it or something like that, if you go on Sephora's website, it actually lists exactly what shadows have talc in them and which don't, so that you can kind of, you know, avoid the ones that do or whatever. For me, it doesn't really make any difference. It doesn't bother me, but I know that is a problem for some people. So let's get into the actual size of the shadows. So you are paying a lot for this palette, but you do get a ton of products. So you get 0.08 ounce per eyeshadow, which is actually a really big pan. So if you take a look at these, I'm going to compare it to a couple other really popular palettes so that you can kind of see what I mean. I just pulled my Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, and if I look at these shadows, these each have 0.03 ounces, like the smaller ones here. So you can see you're getting over double the amount of eyeshadow per pan compared to the Chocolate Bar palette. And then another one that you can look at is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. This one has, each eyeshadow has 0.02 ounces. So you're getting 4 times more product in the Natasha Denona one than you are this one here. So that can kind of help justify the price a little bit because you are getting so much product and you are getting 28 eyeshadows. So when you break down the cost per eyeshadow, it's not really that bad. It's about maybe a little bit more than $10 an eyeshadow, I'm thinking, depending obviously like if you're using Canadian versus American. So packaging wise, I think these are really great. There are pros and cons to them. So first of all, they're made out of this like, it's kind of like a plasticky packaging. It's hard to describe. I don't have any other eyeshadow palettes that are made out of this kind of material. It's all white. I think you can see that the word Natasha Denona is kind of embossed on the bottom there, but it's really plain otherwise. You don't get any of the information about the palette or anything like that on the actual palette. It comes on the box that it comes in. It's a magnetized kind of open and close there, which I really like. And then if you open it up, you do get a big mirror there. It obviously is not as blurry as that. I never use the mirrors in these palettes, so I've never taken the plastic part off. But you do get a nice sized mirror. This black on the inside feels really high quality. Like nothing feels very cardboard or plasticky in this. You do get this little insert here, which tells you the name of each of the eyeshadows. And so when I use it, I just kind of flip it up, and it helps to kind of keep the eyeshadows off of the mirror on the top if you do use the mirror a lot. And you can pull this plastic part out if you don't want it there, but I really like knowing the name of each of the eyeshadows. So I like that. And the purple blue is the exact same kind of packaging. So overall, the packaging to me is really nice. I will say the only thing I don't like about it is that it's white, and while white really looks nice, it does get stained pretty easily. I don't know if you can see, but I've got like some eyeshadow or foundation or something kind of like on the front of that I can't get off. So you do get several finishes in each one of these palettes. Oh, if I can open it up. So just in the purple blue one here, so you can probably see just by looking at the palette that you do get a different, a bunch of different finishes. So there are some that are like ultra pigmented and metallic looking. And I'm kind of thinking of there's like one in each of the palettes. And this one, it's this shade here, which is called Chromatic. And it's the most beautiful silver eyeshadow I've ever used, hands down. In the green brown palette, it has this, what one's this called? Oh, True Gold. It has this gold shadow right here, which is kind of like Chromatic's counterpart. It's like the brightest, most metallic gold. You'll see it when I swatch kind of what I'm talking about, but they're incredible to use. And then you do get a bunch of other kind of shimmery shadows throughout the palette. Like most of these are shimmer, and they do have like different degrees of shimmer. So some of them are really shimmery, some are a little bit less shimmery, and then there are actually a few shadows that will look matte initially, but if you look at them closely, they do have some glitter in them, but they can totally be used like a matte eyeshadow. And I always think of these two shades here, these two purples. They look really matte, but they do have some kind of glitter to them, but they still work really well as like a matte eyeshadow. They don't look really shimmery on the lid or anything like that. I think it is worth saying that each of these palettes doesn't have a ton of matte eyeshadows in them. So it is a little bit hard to use each of these palettes as a standalone palette. I usually will bring another palette in to find like a different matte to use as my transition shade, or neither one of these has a matte black. That's another kind of con that I've thought about. So I will tell you each of the matte eyeshadows here. So let me put the actual thing down. So Even though Nina's Orchid and Electric Violet have some shimmer in them, I do consider them matte shadows in this palette. And then Smoke, which is this really pretty gray, is a matte. Kotao, I'm not sure how to say that, Navy, Powder Blue, and Steel Blue. So, and I think that's it. So that's all of mattes that you're gonna find in this palette. And then in the green brown palette, I think there's even less mattes than in the purple blue. So this one here, Shell, is like a really good light brown transition shade. I use this one a lot. I'm actually surprised I haven't hit pan on it yet, because it is one of those eyeshadows that if I do want to just use this palette, I can get away with like just using this as a transition shade and using this darker brown over here in like to deepen up the crease or something like that. This one is called Arizona, and it's just like a darker brown. And then you have Sandstorm up here, which is like kind of a reddish brown. And this one, like the purple shadows and the other one, does have some sparkle in it, but it still works very well as a matte shadow. And then I actually think that's it for this palette. So this one here really does not have a lot of matte eyeshadows in it. So keep that in mind. If you're somebody that usually uses matte eyeshadows, you might find yourself struggling a little bit with this palette. But to me, she does ultra pigmented glittery shadows so well that I'm glad that this only has a few matte eyeshadows, because I have tons of palettes that have really great mattes in it. But a lot of times you just don't find those like glittery kind of lid eyeshadows that are just like crazy pigmented and bright and shiny, and you totally find those in these two palettes. So when I'm thinking about like the claims that I talked about earlier in the palettes about how they're ultra pigmented, easy to blend, all that stuff, do these palettes in practice actually hold up to the claims? And I would say they definitely do. They're obviously ultra pigmented. They're definitely, can I say my favorite? Probably my favorite eyeshadow formula. Like, they're just absolutely amazing. They're so smooth. They're never like chalky. You do get some fallout with the matte shades, but I mean, for me, I don't really mind fallout. I can just brush it away easily, but some people really have a problem with fallout. So you may not love the matte shades in here, but they are ultra pigmented. They're smooth shadows. I don't find I have an issue with creasing with any of these. I think they last all day, and they definitely are easy to blend. I will say a tip when using these eyeshadows, particularly the like glittery, more glittery eyeshadows, apply them with your finger. They tend to pick up better on your finger than with a brush. So whenever I'm putting these on my lid, I usually will just dip my finger in and put them on like that, rather than like use a brush, because you can get the same pigmentation, but it is going to take you a lot longer to kind of layer them up than when you just straight up use your finger. I think that's the best way to apply these eyeshadows, and it just gives a super vibrant, bright look. So before I get into swatches of each of the palettes, overall, do I think that this is a palette worth buying? It's hard. If the price was a lot cheaper, like let's say they were like 150 bucks or something like that, I would say run out now, invest in this palette. They're absolutely amazing. With a $300 price tag each, it's hard. I find it really hard to recommend them, although these two eyeshadow palettes are definitely in my top 2 or 3 eyeshadow palettes of all time. They're absolutely amazing, and I am really glad that I've purchased both of them. I love the formula. I love the different color array that you get in each of them. I am impressed with the packaging, because there's nothing worse than paying a lot of money for something and then getting it and it just is cheap looking. It's a little bit disappointing, regardless of what the product is like. So I'm glad. The packaging is really beautiful. The eyeshadows perform really well. I don't have anything else like these eyeshadows. So I really love these. Do I think everybody needs this eyeshadow palette? No. If you're like a beginner in makeup, do you need this $300 eyeshadow palette? No, but if you are really into makeup, it makes you happy, it's your hobby, you love collecting and trying new eyeshadows and formulas and palettes, and all that kind of stuff, I would say to go for it. Maybe just go for one of the two. I mean, obviously the purple blue one is more cool toned and the green brown is more warm toned. So if you go for, you know, more neutral colors like the green brown family, go for that one versus the other one. But each of them is really, really beautiful. If I had to pick one between the two of them, I would say go with the green brown one, just because there are some really, really unique, beautiful greeny blue shades that I don't have anything else like them. And it's got so many beautiful shimmery brown shades that, like, it just eliminates ever needing to buy another neutral brown eyeshadow palette ever again. So you also are not limited to just buying the 28 pan eyeshadow palettes if you want to try some of the Natasha Denona eyeshadows. She does sell smaller eyeshadow palettes that have the same shadows that you find in the two big palettes. So she does have a 10 pan eyeshadow palette. Let me look at the cost of it. It's $120 Canadian, $95 American, so still really pricey. You do get better value the bigger palette you buy, but at the same time the price overall is cheaper. So if a palette like this is just way, like, just you could not afford that, you know, try one of the smaller palettes. The 10 pan eyeshadow palette really didn't interest me because just the color array that was in it. I was like, if I'm gonna buy a $120 palette, I really want it to be 10 shades that I absolutely love. And there was a couple in there that I really could have lived without, so I didn't go for that one. And then she has, I think she has 13 5 pan. Oh, you know what? I have one of them. Just one second. I'm gonna grab it. Here it is. Okay, I originally wasn't going to purchase the purple blue palette, so I bought one of the 5 pan eyeshadow palettes. This is palette number 3 because I really wanted that chromatic shade. And even though I ended up buying the purple blue palette, I'm still glad that I have this because there's a couple shades in here that I really, really love that even when maybe I run out of one, at least I'll kind of have backups of them. So here is chromatic right there. It's so beautiful. So you get, let me make sure I'm going in like the right order. So you get cloudy, no, you get steel blue, chromatic, metallic steel blue, smoke, and cloudy blue over here. So these are the 5 pans. These cost $48 US, $61 Canadian. So still really pricey, but a really good option if you want to try out the Natasha Denona eyeshadows without dropping that huge price tag for the big ones. Another thing I'll suggest is that if you go through and see all this like shades swatch, write down the ones that you really love and see if you can find a few of them in the 5 pan eyeshadow palettes, because if there's only a few shades that you really, really love, I mean, there's no point in buying the 28 pan. Hopefully you can find a palette that has like a couple of the ones that you really want in it, or you can buy, you know, a couple of these. But that's another good option if you're looking to just try a couple out without really dropping all the money on the big ones. So she has released a couple other eyeshadow palettes recently. So she did put the Star eyeshadow palette out in the last, I want to say few months or so. I think it was around Christmas time maybe. It has 18 shades in it. $215 Canadian, $169 American, so still very pricey, but it was a really beautiful looking palette. You do get 18 shades. I held off on it because there was a couple shades in it. While it looked beautiful, I feel like there was a couple shades that I really didn't need, and if I'm going to drop that kind of money on a palette, I really want every shade to be really special and beautiful and like want every single one of them. So I passed on that palette. And then there's going to be a newly released palette that has 15 shades in it. It's going to be $166 Canadian, $129 American, and it's going to be called the Sunset eyeshadow palette. So it looks so beautiful. It's a super, super warm tone, kind of reddy orange pink themed palette, obviously like sunset. So it's got a beautiful yellow in it, it's got some beautiful reds, and it's got some really beautiful kind of golden and bronze shades in it. I'm surprised that it's not out yet, because I remember it was probably at least 2 months ago that I seen somebody online who'd obviously been given the palette before it was released to review it and promote it or whatever. I saw them do a video on it and swatch it, and I was like, that seemed forever ago. Usually I feel like people that do that don't usually get the palette so far in advance, because I kind of forgot about it. But it is, according to Sephora, going to be released very soon, and that eyeshadow palette looks really beautiful. I'm gonna have a really hard time not wanting to get that one. So I'm just gonna go vertically down the rows. So this is Cool Plum. This is Satin Skin. Lavender Gray. This is one of my favorite shades in this line. And Deep Slate Gray. Let me make sure that you guys can actually like see the color, and you can see how pigmented and shiny they are. Like, I'm having such a hard time getting the true color because the light just wants to reflect off them. But I think you can see the shades there. So next is Vintage, Smoky Plum, Electric Violet, and Nina's Orchid. And then there's Oxide. Oh my God, look at that shadow. It's such a unique shade too. It's like a reddy copper brown shade that's just so pigmented. It's crazy. And then Rosewood is really beautiful. Maroon, Aubergine. I can't remember if I didn't mention this one as being one of the mattes in this palette or not. If I did, it is one of the mattes. And Golden Beige, just like this really beautiful lid shade. It looks really white on camera, but in person it's very like creamy pink colored. It's really unique, I think. And then this one here is probably my favorite eyeshadow in this palette. This is Golden Rose. And again, there's so much light reflecting off that I'm hoping it's picking it up, but it's like a very beautiful pink with a heavy, heavy gold duochrome kind of shift to it. And that one's Golden Rose. I can't remember if I said that. And then this one is Piggy. And this one is another kind of light pink shade, but it's more like it has more silver undertones than Golden Beige does. And then Calypso Blue is really beautiful. It's kind of like that. It's very much like the blue brown pigment from MAC, and I know Urban Decay has a shadow very similar to it where it's got like that blue shift to it. And then so this one is Quicksilver. It's a really pretty kind of blue based gray. Steel Blue, which is a pretty, let me get a little bit more, just like a pretty matte kind of mid-tone blue. And then Metallic Steel Blue is this one, and this is just so beautiful. I have nothing like this in my collection. Like a beautiful pigmented blue. And then the last one I'll do there is Smoke. And this is another one of the mattes. It's kind of like a gray based blue. So the next one we have is Deep Pacific. And this is another really pretty blue. And then Powder Blue is like this crazy kind of teal blue shade, matte, very pretty. A lot of these eyeshadows are great to have because you don't necessarily want to go out and buy like a teal colored matte eyeshadow, But come like Halloween and stuff like that, there was so many eyeshadows that I was like, oh, I wish I had that blue or that purple or whatever. And now I do. So this is Petroleum Blue. You know what? I don't think I've ever even used this Petroleum Blue shadow. But it's so pretty. My gosh. And then this is Koi Tao. God, I have no idea how to say that. And it's like basically a matte baby blue shadow. Okay, so this one is Glaze. This is another one I should use more because it's definitely way prettier when you swatch it. This is Gray Brown. Really pretty silver, like a dark silver. And this is Chromatic. And watch this. Should have started that at the top. Isn't that insane? It's crazy. And look how much is like still on my finger from it. Like it's so crazy. I don't have any other shadow like that. And then Navy is the last one. And that is just a matte navy blue. So that is all of the purple blue palette. So next I have the green brown palette, and I'm going to start off with the shade called Suede, which is this really pretty, it almost looks like a matte light brown, but then it's got this beautiful gold shimmer in it. And then next is Skin. Again, just really, really pretty eyeshadows. Really beautiful kind of light brown lid color. That one again, some of these you forget how beautiful they are until you swatch them out and you're like, oh my god, like so beautiful. This is Shell, this next one. This is Shell. So you can see this one's pretty light and it's just a really light brown that I'll use as a transition shade. And then Umber is right here. Swatch that again because my pinky is so small. There, that is Umber, really pretty. So next we have Indian Gold. This is so pretty too. And Moonstone. This is Cream. And then this one is Flamingo. And I will say, I don't love this shade. This is probably like, it is a little bit like, there's a lot of fallout with that shade. I don't even think you can see the undertone to it there, but it's like a light skin toned color. Next is Industrial. This is, oh my god, this is another one of my favorites. I just love these like really, really bright, shimmery, like metal colors. Next is Aluminum. This is like one step below Chromatic. Like this color is a beautiful, like if Chromatic didn't exist, Aluminum would definitely be the most pigmented, crazy kind of silver color ever. But Aluminum or Chromatic beats it out just by a little bit. And this is Golden Aquamarine. This is another one of my favorite shades here. It's like a light, it's like a teal color, but it's got like really heavy gold shifts to it. And then like the teal and the gold just go so well together. And then this is Tropic. This is another one of my like favorite shades. I don't have anything like it. And again, it's a darker teal color, but it's got that same kind of gold shift in it, just not as prominent as Golden Marine. So next is Smoky Quartz. Let me get a little bit of that there. And then this is True Gold. This is another one of these like one swatch crazy pigment and shimmer shades. And then the next one is Glam Green. This is another one that I don't use enough. And then this next one, Cloudy Blue, I use a lot actually. And that's it there. And this one is Antique Olive. Oh my god, I took a lot there. It's a really beautiful olive green. And Pinesia, I think is how you say that. Pinesia. And it is a lot like blue brown, but it's different. It's like a definitely of a darker brown undertone to it. And then bottle green is really pretty as well. So you can see, it's just like a bottle green. And then this is emerald green. Oh my God, that is so pretty. I should have wore that for like St. Patrick's Day or something. That would have been a really good idea. And this is Sandstorm. And this is one of the matte browns. And this one is Terracotta. It's like a beautiful bronzy, coppery shade. And then this is Arizona, another, obviously the mattes don't swatch super well, but that's Arizona there. It's like the darker matte brown. And then this is another one of my favorite shades. This is Cool Bronze. Like, look at that. I love wearing this on my eyelid and with like just, you know, some matte brown shadows in the crease and my transition shade. Oh, it's just so beautiful. All right, last row. This is Ochre. This is another one of my shades I use all the time. It's just a really pretty brown shade. And then this one, Sienna, is so unique and it's beautiful. This is another one that I wear on my lids all the time, like all the time. Let me see, I might need to put the light on that. It's like a brown, but it's got this really heavy kind of goldy, kind of almost green shift to it. Oh, it just is so pretty. And then this is Golden Flesh, just kind of a weird name. That's it there, just really nice. Let me take the light away. Brown. And then finally you've got Satin Tan. And this is a decent one. This is not my favorite shade just because there's so many other like beautiful browns that a lot of times I will kind of overlook this shade, but it's still really pretty. So the last thing I wanted to do is just give you guys an actual close-up of the palette so you can see the shades and stuff. Because sometimes it's hard when you see them from far away, even though they're swatched and everything like that. So that is the green brown palette. So beautiful. They do get a little bit messy with use, obviously, like you get like the shadow kind of like in between there. It actually looks way worse on camera because all the shadow is picking up the light from my lights. It doesn't look this kind of messy in person. But it is something that I think I could probably just clean away. I just am too lazy to do it because it just doesn't really bother me. Yeah. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a little bit more about like the Natasha Denona eyeshadows, and finally got to see some good swatches of them from me. I've been meaning to review these palettes forever and I just kind of forgot about it or something. But anyways, I will be back soon with another video. Bye.